then yes, we should have documentation, but the documentation should be only you going over there because you don't quite understand this one hiccup. But if you made them all consistent, then you have a lot of intuitiveness that moves the API forward. And another example is in terms of route consistency that we ran into on the Go side was CDNs versus CDNs capacity. And this is just a route matching problem where if you go to /CDNs, you'll grab it all, right? And so what ended up happening was we grabbed everything for the CDNs capacity, which hadn't been implemented yet, right? So if we were to have consistency with our routes, then we could build consistent patterns within the Go proxy to actually do a better mapping of the routes.
Okay.
So
specifically, it was that /CDNs /capture group ID.
Right.
Capture group ID was picking up capacity as an ID.
Right.
Capacity couldn't be
Right.
turned into an integer because it's not an integer, and
Yes.
we get a 500 every time. So
but a lot of that though stemmed from the fact that we didn't have consistent routes. Traffic ops roadmap. So one of the hopes, and now granted these are roadmap items, these aren't necessarily anything that we're going to say in version 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, right? These are just going to sort of come as we get better with the Go proxy and consistency. So all the problems we run into has brought up this bigger discussion. Maybe we should talk about the Traffic Apps API 2.0, right? So if we did 2.0, right, we have the freedom to break things and sort of do things in a way that would actually, I think, make us move faster because we're not dealing with all the one-offs and all the snowflakes that live in the old Perl API. So one of the improvements we want to do is we want to have the ability to make the API more productive, be able to do bulk CRUDs. I'm able to throw in a list of servers all at once and they all get populated. I don't have to go in one by one calling the API to do anything. Consistency would also allow us to build generation tools. We could basically say, all right, I want to build a scaffolding for a new handler, just fill in the gaps, right? But until we get to that point where we have consistency in the API, can we actually start to build these kinds of tools? Top-down design with the API with Swagger, right? So I've on the mailing list talked quite a bit with Swagger, and I've put in quite a few PRs. It hasn't really surfaced yet in the API because of the struct issues, but once we lay down the changes like we want, it'll probably take me one PR to hook it in because I've got it all generating on the fly now. So it's just a matter of not surfacing the things that we don't want in the API. Top downs, oh, I was going to cut and paste there. Phase out the TO clients, right? Because now once you got a Swagger metadata document, I can generate anything that I want. Currently there's PySwagger, you know, for the Pythonistas in the room. There's GoSwagger, or if you really want to go nuts, there's 86 different languages you can generate clients for if you've got a Swagger doc. So we shouldn't really be in the mode of maintaining TO clients anymore, in my opinion. If once we get that Swagger doc in place, and it covers the exact structure of the API. Back to the discussion earlier about the database, we want to sort of do better about talking to the database as a first-class citizen. We have all these back-end components like React and InfluxDB. You know, why not just make the database a proper back-end and then version it like as if you're going through an API? Maybe we talk about structs, you know, and views that map differently. Who knows? But things I think that if we start to version, we can actually understand what's there. You have a question here?
No.
Okay, sorry. Atomic APIs. What this really means is
the dependency on join tables. We are going to keep join tables and we are going to enforce the schema in the database. We're just not going to expose those specific join tables because they're not useful to the user, the actual data.
Exactly.
I just want to make sure.
Yes, and that's sort of what this means about the Atomic API. If I nest things, right, the relationship's there.
Yeah.
The fact that there's IDs back there, the user should never understand that, right? So then when you move away from the IDs, then it makes a user.
You don't care about the profile parameters table. You care about my parameters.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yep.
I agree. Yep.
And then it'll make the API much more usable. And actually, I think if it's more usable, there would be a lot less need to go to the database, right? Let's see what else. Extensions. This is a very interesting one because What that means is
Can we just not rip those out?
we're not going to rip them out. We're going to figure out a way to tie them in through web services or microservices.
Okay.
This is roadmap item, right? So we've talked, after your last summit, point out, Dylan and I have had a lot of discussions about how can we decouple the coupling that we did to achieve getting into Go and take that proxying piece and make it a first-class citizen.
So the proxy is going to proxy to another web service.
That's correct.
Good luck with your web service.
Yes.
Yeah.
And as long as it, can weave its way into the API, who cares, right? As long as it can map its way over, I don't know that it matters. Then we can build anything you want in the back end. Consider Postgres views, which I've already mentioned. Refactor the types table. This is a rough one because there's a lot of frameworks and constraints that could be built around the fact if we had separate types. I want a cache type, right? I want a server type. Right now we sort of overloaded the types table because it was convenient, but it's sort of put a lot of handcuffs around us for building consistent frameworks that we can reuse.
So what's the solution going to be? Many type tables, or
We don't know yet, but this is a roadmap item, right? I just wanted to point it out.
So
I think, in my opinion, yes. I think we should have a server types table.
or maybe enums and
Or enums, yes, exactly. Whatever it takes to sort of to break away the overloaded nature of the types table because we have no generics in Go. So it makes it really impossible to load this in a way that we can on the fly figure the types out.
works really well in Perl.
Yeah, exactly. So that's in my talk. Here's our API guidelines. I sort of threw that one out there. On the next summit, we'll maybe have, guidelines for the database and so forth that we can improve upon. Any questions?
I'll probably say the same thing for Dylan's talk, but if you guys have team members that are looking to get involved, this is a great jumping in point.
Yes.
We have plenty of work to do. It's pretty well defined. And there's plenty of people that could help out. So.
Yeah, and we'll be very helpful with.
And turnarounds or something.
No, and one of the things too that I want to mention is you've heard a lot of the things that we're trying to figure out and understand and move forward. And if you write a Go endpoint and submit it as a PR and it comes into the master at that point in time in that state, and if there's overarching changes, we will move that forward, right?
Yeah.
As long as you make the effort and then follow as much of the guidelines and get the PR in, then it'll be future maintained.
Yeah, and I think it'd be really educational as well for people
Yes.
on your team. I think it'd be really it's a great time.
We've
to
actually
go
worked
in
quite a bit with Cisco.
because
So we have a couple of
Yeah.
features that are kind of involved in this area.
Yes.
Some of those
Yeah.
and we'll still have cap-
Right. And based upon, hopefully my talk will give you a better understanding of where we're coming from. But as well, don't shy away from it because our goal is to move forward with Go, right? And look in the distance at Perl.
For a while there was a lot of foam in the water and not a lot of direction or progress, and it feels like finally we're going somewhere. And I
Yes.
think people need to get on the boat and
Yes.
and really start helping us all go into that direction.
In the area really kind of help us is to start to introduce the compatibility in the version of API. Which is
Yes.
very important for us because we have mixed version of Micro.
Right. And I think the extensions discussion is going to be very suitable for a lot of things you guys do.
So, one more question.
Mhm.
I think, I didn't look, but I think there's probably some of our earlier try things in Go. Probably still there. I think Crystal stuff is probably.
Oh, the
there.
experimental?
Yeah. Is everybody okay that we just remove that, get rid of that? This is where we go, and all the other Go stuff we remove, and then we make a vote out of that, right?
That should go on the list.
That should go on the list. But if
Yes.
I put that on a vote, everybody.
I don't think that,
We'll always have it in Git, right?
I was going to say, it's there forever. Yeah.
I think it's confusing. You walk up to the new thing and you find 4 ways of
Yes.
doing this. 2, you gotta then look at which
Yeah.
have the newest commits. You shouldn't
Yeah.
have to look at what the newest commit is. You should just have one way of doing shit.
Yeah.
We agree? I'll make it.
Yes.
Last one.
Close words.
All right. Thank you.